What's up everybody, and welcome to my updated 2024 edition Ultimate Escape from Tarkov Beginner's Guide. Escape from Tarkov is a very brutal and complex game, and it does a very bad job of explaining its systems to new players, and so I want this to be a video where you can get just about everything you need to know to get started. I'm not going to be able to cover every facet of the game, but enough to get you going in your Tarkov journey. That also means this is going to be a really long video. Even if you get through it in one sitting, you're probably not going to be able to retain all of it. So every single thing I talk about is going to be time-stamped down below. I want this to be a resource that you can come back to if you have additional questions or if you just can't remember something. So all that's going to be time-stamped down below. Two quick things before we hop in. I stream Escape from Tarkov about 6 days a week on Twitch and here on YouTube. If you have any further questions, just come ask. We're super chill over there. And secondly, our Discord is a really good place to be. We have like 25,000 people in there. It's very Tarkov focused. We have looking for group channels, places to ask questions. That link is down below as well. With all that out of the way though, let's go ahead and dive right in. So welcome to Escape from Tarkov. If you're not at this screen yet, you probably have to set up your account, pick your name, choose between Bear or USEC and that kind of stuff, and then you'll get here. I will say as a quick note, there are two main factions in the game, Bear and USEC. You have to pick at the beginning. I would say the TLDR is if you're new, pick USEC. Largely the differences are just the gear that you start with and the cosmetics that you get in the game. But on one specific map, there's one specific faction of AI that are extra mean towards Bears and a little bit more friendly to USEC. So if you're new, I would say pick USEC and then just don't worry about it. If you've already picked Bear, it's not that big of a deal. It is only one map, but you'll struggle a little bit more on that map. But this is the main screen. What we're going to do first throughout this video is kind of talk about the flow, the menus, how all of these systems interact, and then towards the end, we'll hop into a raid and go through a few of those mechanics as well. So we'll start here with the character screen. This is the main screen you're going to be interacting with. Over here on the right is your stash. It's everything that you have. This is protected. This is all of the gear, money, keys, everything that you've accumulated. Don't judge me. My stash is a mess. We wiped not too long ago, okay? Now, on the left side of the screen, the center and the left side, this is what you're bringing into a raid, or if you've extracted what you have with you to take out of a raid. If I went into a raid right now, everything on this side of the screen is basically at risk. If I die, I lose every single thing on me. All of your gear, all of your armors, all of your stuff like that is at risk when you go into a raid and Escape from Tarkov. If you die, you lose it. The exceptions to that rule is your armband. You're never going to lose that. Your melee weapon, no matter what it is, there's a few that you can find in the game. And down here, your secure container. If you have a smaller one than this, that's going to be depending on what edition of the game that you've got. You can get bigger secure containers through gameplay. You can get some from the traders and you get some as quest rewards. But this secure container, anything that's inside of this is not going to be lost when you die. We'll talk about found in raid later, but this is obviously a very important part of the game. It's a great way to take in keys or money for anything. Or if you're in a raid and you find something that you really want, you can take something out and throw something in there and you're going to keep that even if you die. That is the main gameplay loop you're going to be interacting with a lot. Going in, dying, losing all your stuff, or extracting with other people's stuff that you get to take and steal, and then throwing it here into your stash to keep and then use for future raids. Now, a super quick thing when we're talking about this stash here where you have all your stuff, you've probably heard the word wipe being thrown around. You're probably new to Escape from Tarkov in this wipe. What a wipe is every 6 months or so, the game completely erases your character and every single thing that you have and wipes everybody back to basically as if you bought a brand new account. It wipes your level, your skills, all this stuff that we're going to talk about. It wipes everything in your hideout progress and everything in your stash gets reset to 0. So that's a super important thing to know. Once again, that happens about every 6 months. We had one that just happened right around Christmas time. They might get rid of that mechanic when the game goes 1.0, but who knows when that is. But that's just like an important thing. If you've heard that term, that's what a wipe is. So we'll go through all of the tabs here at the top before we get into the nitty-gritty of these things. First is the overall tab. This is just like your stats on your character. You can see your PMC and your scav rates separately, which we will talk about in a little bit. Lots of cool information here. How many people you've killed, what was your longest shot, what's your stash net worth and stuff like that, showing your survival rate. I wouldn't worry too much about these stats, especially if you're a new player, but that is what this screen is. Back to gear. This is where we start. This is your stash and your character. Moving over to health. So this is kind of a visual representation of how health in Escape from Tarkov is broken down. This obviously is going to be much more impactful in a raid, but it's nice that you kind of get an idea of what it all is outside of the raid. So your PMC has 440 health, as you can see here right above my head, and that health is split up into your different body parts. Head, thorax, stomach, arms, and legs. Now, the body parts are going to act differently depending on the damage they take. If you get shot and you just take a little bit of damage, like 20 HP out of your head, then you're 15 out of 35, you can just heal that back up. If any of your limbs take all of their damage, now that's called being blacked out, and then all sorts of different things happen. So if your leg loses all of its HP and gets blacked out, you can no longer run or sprint, you just hobble around. And then there are some med items that can help that. If your arm gets blacked out completely, you can still run fine, but when you go to aim, your aim is going to be very, very shaky. If your stomach gets blacked out, you start to lose hydration and energy very, very quickly, and you cough really audibly. It's super annoying. And your head and your thorax are the two things where if these get blacked out, you die. So you have 440 HP, but if you take 36 damage to your head, you're dead. It's not like one combined health pool. And that also means that if you take a ton of damage to your arms or your legs, you can take a ton of damage, but still be okay because you can heal all of those things. There are some rare instances where your head or your thorax can get to 0 damage through a bleed, but those are kind of like fringe issues there. What's also interesting to note here is your arms, legs, and stomach basically have damage modifiers. So if your arm gets blacked out, if your left arm gets blacked out, and you continue to get shot in that blacked out arm, through super complicated calculations on the back end, it's basically going to take the damage of that bullet hitting the blacked out limb and spread that damage to all of the limbs that you have that are not blacked out. If you have a blacked out arm and 2 legs and you get shot in any one of those limbs, it's going to take that damage and spread it between even fewer limbs because you have fewer limbs that aren't blacked out. Your stomach and your arms, I believe it actually is an additional damage. The modifier is like 1.2, so you take more damage. The legs, it's like 0.7. That stuff is a little complicated, but that is functionally how the HP works. You have 440 HP, but how you take damage is really going to determine the time to kill and how much you can survive. Now, there are also a bunch of things that can affect your character. You can get a fracture in your arm or legs. A fracture means that the limb is not blacked out. You can just heal it up to full HP, but it kind of is acting like it's blacked out. If your leg gets a fracture, you can't run. You're going to be hobbling around. If your arm gets a fracture, your aim is going to be super all over the place. You can heal that fracture easier than healing a blacked out limb, but the effect a fracture has on your character is similar to a limb being blacked out. The other effects that can happen are your character can also catch bleeds. There is a light bleed and a heavy bleed. You just lose damage over time to every limb on your body with a light or heavy bleed. A heavy bleed just meaning that you're losing more HP per second. You can also get dehydrated, which is, I'm going to move my camera. When your hydration goes all the way to 0, you get dehydrated, and exhaustion, when your energy goes all the way down to 0, you get exhausted. Both of these will also do damage over time and also affect things like how fast your stamina regens and stuff like that. Exhaustion is much harder to survive. You just basically can't regain your stamina. You're losing health over time. That's something that you want to avoid. Now, we can talk about the medical items that kind of service this medical system here. Everything that we talked about has its own medical item, and then there are lots of combined medical items. So there are bandages. A bandage heals a bleed, and it will tell you any item in the game if you double click on it, especially when you're in your stash. You can do this in raid too, but there might be things shooting at you. It's going to tell you exactly what it is. So this stops only light bleeds, not heavy bleeds, and it takes 2 seconds to use. There are things like tourniquets that stop heavy bleeds. This takes 5 seconds to use. This doesn't stop a light bleed. It only stops heavy bleeds. Then you have things with multiple uses, like this bandage here, stops light bleeds, takes 2 seconds to use, but you can use it 2 times before you deplete it. Same thing with the Kalak B here. This will heal 3 heavy bleeds before you need to find a new one. And then same thing with HP. So an AI2 heals HP. So if I get shot in the arm and it's 30 out of 60, this will heal that arm back up. Now, the HP of the medical item is basically how much HP this can heal you. So no matter what body part is hurt, this AI2 can only heal you for a maximum of 100 HP. So if your arm is 30 out of 30 and you heal your arm, well, now this will be 70 out of 100, and you can heal your leg, maybe your stomach, and maybe your head, but it's only going to give you back a total of 100 HP. And then a fracture, a splint, there's a few different things. This is the multi-use one here, the ALU splint. These heal fractures exclusively. And, you know, this one you can only use once. The ALU splint you can use 5 times. Then we get to things that are combined uses. So something like an IFAK, this has 300 HP that it can heal you. And you can see here that it will also stop heavy bleeds and it will stop light bleeds. Now, the thing is if you want to use something like this to stop a bleed, it's going to consume a certain amount of that HP. So if I get a light bleed and I stop the light bleed with this IFAK here, it's going to take 30 HP off the IFAK, even though it didn't heal me, it just stopped the bleed. So that's the cost of using these combined meds. And the heavy bleeds you can see are very costly. So if I only brought this in to heal and I didn't bring anything with me that can heal a heavy bleed, well, if I catch a heavy bleed, I'm using almost the entire IFAK just to stop the bleed. And then I don't have much HP in my heals left to heal up my limbs. And then you can see there are lots of other things to do that. The car med kit as well. This only stops light bleeds. It doesn't stop heavy bleeds, but this will also heal you. Something like a Salua is very popular because it has 400 total HP. So it has more healing potential. And the cost of stopping light and heavy bleeds is changed a little bit here. An IFAK is cheaper to heal a light bleed, but more expensive to heal a heavy bleed. So some combination that you see is most of the time something like this, where there's a heal, a painkiller, and something to heal a heavy bleed. Now, painkillers we haven't talked about yet. Painkillers basically exist to negate the negative effects of your legs being blacked out or having fractures. That is the big thing really that they do. So if you have a fracture on your leg, or your leg is blacked out and you don't have time to heal it or address it, you can pop a painkiller, and for however long that painkiller is active, you can freely move around, you can sprint, you can run, you can walk, you can aim, everything is as normal. The only thing is, if you have a blacked out leg or a fractured leg, you're basically going to be grunting as you're running around and going to be losing HP. So the cost of taking the painkiller and giving you that mobility without healing is that you might lose a little bit more HP. But painkillers are extremely, extremely important for mobility during firefights. The last thing that you want to do is be in a fight with somebody and they clip your leg, whether intentionally or accidentally, and you're basically just hobbling around a super easy target, sitting duck for them. So painkillers end up being super important, and there's a few different types here. The aniline painkillers, this has 4 uses, and it takes 3 seconds to use, but the painkiller only lasts 80 seconds. You have some of the stimulants here, like the morphine injector, which lasts 300 seconds, and also the use time is much quicker at 2 seconds. And then you have stuff like Propital. We're going to talk about the stims as well. Basically, just look at this. The painkiller lasts much longer. It lasts 240 seconds. So take a look at what you have, how many uses it has, and how long that painkiller effect happens. But those are the basic breakdown of the meds in the game. Something like a Grizzly is kind of like the end-all be-all. It stops light bleeds, it stops heavy bleeds, it also removes fractures, which is really nice, and it has 1800 HP of total healing potential. The only problem is that it's a 2x2, which means not all rigs it can actually fit in, and the use time, it takes about 5 seconds or more to heal each of those things individually. So if you're healing up your entire body, that actually does add up to quite a bit of time, but it's all about pros and cons. It's all about give and take. X might be more expensive, Y might be more useful, you know, whatever. But just once again, read through the descriptions if there's anything that you find in the raid. The stims we'll go through super briefly. As a new player, I wouldn't worry about them too much. Know that if you find any of these stims, they generally sell for a lot. So you can always just take them and sell them. But they can modify your experience in a bunch of different ways. I won't go through all of them. Just click on them if you find them. Something like an SJ6, this has no healing properties, but what it does do is it means that I have more stamina and my stamina recovers quicker. So if you're trying to get out, if you're trying to get away from a situation, if you're trying to get to a place before other people get there, something like an SJ6 means you can just run farther and longer. Something like a Zagustin is an interesting one where this is health adjacent. This will stop all bleeds that you have instantaneously and prevent new bleeds from opening up for 180 seconds. This is super great because if you get shot by a shotgun and you have 2 light bleeds and 2 heavy bleeds, which can happen quite frequently, you might be healing, but those bleeds, you have to heal them one at a time, and you're really going to be hemorrhaging HP. So something like this, super useful to just take one and all of your bleeds stop immediately. There's all sorts of different ones that you can look at. This is another one that stops all your bleeds and heals you. There are ones that make you increase the amount of weight you can carry, which we're going to get to that system later, but the mule, all this does is means you can carry more weight. There's a lot of stims in the game, and they all do different stuff. You'll kind of find that, 5, 6, 7 of them end up being the most useful ones, and the rest people just sell. But when in doubt, double click on something, take a look at what it does. You can do this offline or in an actual raid. The last thing kind of like medical related to talk about, especially when we're talking about painkillers, is to always check what it does to your hydration and energy. These healing items, the painkillers, are the ones where, to kind of prevent people from just spamming them throughout the entire raid to avoid limping ever, is they actually remove some of your hydration, in some cases hydration and energy. And like we said, those dehydration and exhaustion effects can be pretty brutal. If you manage taking painkillers with finding food and water in raid, you're going to be fine. It's no problem. But it's just something to be aware of. If you're taking a bunch of painkillers and then you're like, oh my God, why don't I have any water? Well, this could be why. This is especially the case for things like ibuprofen, Golden Star, Vaselines, which are the big multi-use painkillers that last a long time. So a ibuprofen has 15 uses and each use lasts 280 seconds. So this is really nice, but every time you take it, minus 17 hydration, and that can add up pretty quickly. And then when we talk about the hydration and exhaustion status effects, that's pretty simple. Just eat or drink food and those will go away. Try to get back up, as high as you can. And when we're talking about those blacked out limbs, the 2 things that you can use to fix those are the CMS and the Serve 12 here. These things exist solely to take a limb that has been damaged all the way to 0 HP and fix it. So an example, you get shot in the arm and it does 61 damage, meaning that this right arm is completely blacked out and now I've got shaky aim and I want to fix it. You can use a CMS or a Serve 12 to fix the arm, and when this animation is done, the arm will have 1 HP. Now, the cost of doing that is that the arm's total HP will no longer be 60. It will be something like 45. And then you can heal that arm up and now you're good and you can run around and you're not going to have shaky aim, but that arm is going to have even less HP, which means it's going to be prone to be blacked out again even quicker. That's the cost of doing it. These are long animations, 16 seconds or 20 seconds to use these. The CMS obviously goes a little bit quicker. It's smaller when putting it in your secure container, but it only has 5 uses. The Serve 12 can be used 15 times. So this can fix a lot of blacked out limbs, but it takes a little bit more time. Now, when we're talking about the HP, the CMS kit will give you less HP back. So your arm will still come back with only 1 HP, but if I blacked out my arm and I use the CMS, it will come back at like 1 out of 42. If I use the Serve 12 kit, it will come back of 1 out of 53. Does that kind of make sense? So the amount of total HP you get back is better with the Serve 12. I normally run a CMS because it's shorter and I'm trying to save time when I'm in my raids. But that's totally personal preference. So you black out a limb, you use this, and then you heal that limb back up. Now it's worth noting, only your arms, your legs, and your stomach can be CMS'd. Once again, if you get into a situation where you catch a bleed and that bleed brings your head down to 0 HP, you're not dead yet. Your head is blacked out. You cannot CMS it. Now, if you take 1 singular point of damage to your head, you are dead. The same thing can happen to your thorax. So just be aware of that. CMS, Serve 12, those are great, but only for the stomach and your appendages. When you die in Escape from Tarkov, you come back to your stash not at full HP, before you get to your stash, there's an option where you can pay therapist money to heal you all the way back up to full, or you can use your own meds. You can say, no, I don't want to pay therapist to do that. You can get back and you can right click and click use here on like a grizzly, and it would heal you up. I think the people have broken it down where it's cheaper to use the meds in your stash, but I just pay therapists to do it. It's not that much money, and I like to keep my meds for what I'm going to bring into my raid. But it's important to note that when you die, you don't come back with full HP. Now, that's the medical system. Let's move over to the soft skills. All right, so another pretty overwhelming screen here. These are all the soft skills that are in the game. Most of these are very passive. They don't get used very often. There are some really core ones like strength and endurance. Strength is going to determine how much weight you can carry, among other things. You can kind of like hover over these things and see all of the things that it can do. And endurance is going to determine how far you can run, how much total stamina that you have, along with a few other things. You can noodle around here. You can go to the wiki and see all of these things. Some of them are impactful, like the specific gun skill, like assault rifles. If you use assault rifles a lot and you level this skill up a ton, you will have less recoil with assault rifles. But the problem is these skills are just extremely hard to level, and because you're using different equipment all the time, like I've almost 8,000 hours in this game. I've never had max assault rifle. I've never had max. I don't think I've ever had level 15 sniper rifles. So this is pretty overwhelming, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. We'll talk about a few of the skills like the heavy vests and the weapon maintenance later. You have some that are kind of related to your hideout. Overall, though, some of these might be linked to quests, so you might end up having to hop over to the wiki to figure out how to level these things and you know, figure them out to level them for a specific quest. But by and large, as a new player, I wouldn't worry about this too much. This is stuff that you can start to kind of like min-max if you really start diving into the game to have fun. It's worth noting, though, that level 51 is max for each of these skills. And when you reach level 51, you get an elite perk where you can do some sort of bonus thing. Like with strength, one of the elite perks is that you have a 50% to basically critical hit when you melee hit somebody. And the search skill, I can't find it here, but the search skill, when you get to level 51, the elite perk is that you can search two things at the same time. So if you're searching a body, you can search their backpack and their pockets at the same time, or the backpack and their rig at the same time. So the elite perks are kind of cool, but once again, not something I would really worry about as a new player. Then we move on to the maps. The in-game maps in Escape from Tarkov are terrible. You shouldn't use them. Don't use them. You can't really do much with them. You can buy maps in game and you can like put little markers on them or something, but they're atrocious. There are lots of really well-made maps by the community. There's lots you can find on the wiki. Reamer is a content creator that makes some really good maps. Mapgenie.io is one I like a lot because of how interactive it is. You can hide everything here, and now you can get anything that you want to know. Where are the extractions and what are they called? Where are the spawn points? Where do scavs spawn? Where are scavs going to be? Where, if I'm looking for duffel bags, if I'm looking for crates, if I'm looking for static armor spawns, all that kind of stuff you can use Mapgenie to find. A few of the maps are locked behind a paywall, which is a little unfortunate. The maps that are locked behind a paywall are probably not the ones you're going to be going to super early. Maybe Ground Zero is, but this is just one resource. Once again, hop on the wiki. There's ones for every single map that are free, but this is a nice one because of how interactive it is. The next tab over here is your tasks. This will quickly become something that is very overwhelming to you. These are all of the tasks that I have open right now. There are quite a bit. These are like sortable, so I can sort them by map, the progress of them. If I want to do tasks that I'm actually working on, you can sort them by the trader that gives them to you. This is kind of cool. The quest item inventory here can be important to note. Basically, if you have a quest specific item on you, it will show up here. And if you don't want to do the second half of that quest, you can put that quest item here into your like quest item stash where it will live. And even if you die, you don't lose that quest item. This is not used very often, but that is what this is for. There's also notes. Nobody's ever written a note in this game. Don't worry about it. Then what you have over here in this tab is the operational tasks, which these are dailies and weeklies. Once you get to level 5, you get 3 daily tasks from the traders. We'll show the UI for that here in a second. And once you get to level 15, you get 1 weekly task. These can be re-rolled if you want to change it up, but they show up here and, you know, it shows you what the rewards are and what they are. That's also a thing here. Any of these tasks, you can click on them here and then get a little bit more information about it from the task menu here. like we said, lots of tasks. You'll be on this screen quite a bit here while you're kind of playing your raids. And then the last tab up here on the top is the achievements tab. This is brand new, and this is just a place where you can just go through and look at some achievements. Eliminate Tagilla for the first time. Boom. Only 1% of players have done that so far. I haven't earned it yet. I have earned some of these, like eliminate 50 USEC PMCs or survive with a scav at the scav PMC extract. This is new. This is cool. Currently, there's no rewards you get for these. Like these don't unlock cosmetics or any in-game rewards, but it's just kind of cool. You can show off some of the achievements that you've done, you know, see how many you've achieved, how many are common, rare, or legendary, and stuff like that. Now, when we were talking about tasks over here, we saw some of these traders. If we back up to the main menu and then go into trading, this is the kind of like main trading menu. These are all of those traders up here, up top. These are the main interaction of buying and selling all of the gear in Escape from Tarkov for the most part. These are also all of your quest givers, and quests are going to be how you progress through the game. They give you most of your XP. This is going to be the main way to level up. All of the traders up here kind of have a different specialty for the most part. Prapor specializes in kind of like Russian guns and ammos and attachments and stuff like that. Peacekeeper is your kind of like Western guy, so he's going to have a lot more like M4s and a lot of NATO stuff. Therapist is going to be heals. Jaeger is going to be shotguns. Ragman is going to be most of your armors and rigs and helmets and stuff like that. So they all have their kind of specialty. They all are going to sell and also buy different items. So if I have like, let's see, a gun here. Mechanic buys a lot of guns, and you can see that he'll buy this ADAR for 92,000 rubles. I can sell that to Prapor if I want to. He's going to buy it for 82,000 rubles. Skier is going to buy it for 81,000 rubles. So those specialties kind of go across all of them. They have a specialty in what they sell to you, and they also kind of have preferences on what they will buy. Sometimes you'll want to sell something to a trader, even if they don't give you the most, but that's just something, once again, to kind of take a look. Anytime you want to sell something, if you want to sell some meds or a gun or something, just poke around to the traders and see who's going to give you the most money for it. I guess I should say that obviously right here in the middle, this is basically how you decide if you want to buy or sell. When I'm on the buy screen, anything I click, it's going to show me what it's going to cost to me, and I can choose deal if I want to purchase this thing. And then I click on sell over here, and then you basically bring things into this, and it'll tell you how much. You can also control click. So if I wanted to sell all these meds to therapists, I can control click everything in here, and then she'll give me 80,000 rubles for it. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to hit clear here and pull everything out. But that's kind of the main buy, sell for everything that you have. Now, the traders have levels to them, basically, and that's shown by, you know, this marking up in the top left. So I have level 3 mechanic and ragman, and the crown means I'm max level with Jaeger and the rest of these traders. The max level is 4. And so you can kind of see that if I go to a trader that I have max level like Prapor, these are the different levels. So when you're a brand new player, all of your traders are going to be level 1, and you're only going to have what's in this level 1 right here, just this stuff. Then when you get to level 2, you open up these things, level 3, level 4. And this button is just going to show you everything. But if you're looking for something that I know is on Prapor 3, if you're just looking to find it, you can do that. Leveling up your traders is the main way to gain access to more gear that you can purchase and then run in your raids whenever you want to do that. Now, up in the top right here is going to show you basically how that interaction works, how you level up a trader. So as you can see, 3 things are taken into account when you want to level up a trader. That is your level. So what this is saying is that for mechanic level 4, I'm currently level 3. In order to get to level 4, I need to be level 40, and that's red because I'm not level 40. I'm currently level 38. Now, this right here in the middle, this is your trader standing. It's like your reputation with that trader. Now, you increase this reputation by completing tasks. Now, it's blue because it's saying I need 0.6 reputation and I have 1.0, so I'm good there. But if you click over to the tasks that trader offers, you can see that completing this task, this gives me 0.02 reputation with mechanics. So if I completed this quest, this would be 1.02. So that's how you increase that reputation, which is also a factor when trying to level up a trader. Also worth noting right here, what I did was each trader, you can click through here, you can click over and see those tasks. There was that tasks tab in the overall that showed me everything. This tab is actually where you're going to be turning in those tasks. So if I completed this surveillance task, I would come here and click complete. If I had something to turn in, I would turn it in here as well. So back in the character screen, this is a great overview to see like, oh, I've completed this task, or I need to turn this in. But you're going to end up coming to the trader menu here. You click over to tasks. This is where you turn it in. Now, back to leveling up traders. It's the level, your reputation with that trader, and how much money you have exchanged with that trader. This can be something that holds people back early. So like if you're getting from level 1 to 2 prapper, or from level 2 to 3 skier or something like that, you have to have spent a certain amount of money with them. A good example is skier. I just got level 4 skier, like literally yesterday, and I had the level, I had level 38. I had the trader reputation I needed, but I wasn't leveled up yet because I hadn't spent enough money with him yet. Now, that money spent goes both directions, buying or selling things. So what a lot of people do to break through that is they just go find something like a gun, something expensive. They just buy a bunch of it and then sell it right back to that person. Now, if I buy this for 90,000 rubles, he's only going to buy it back for, 60,000 rubles or 50,000 rubles. So you definitely lose some money in the process, but it's a good way to get that up and get that money exchanged, because both directions count towards that. So for mechanic, I need to have spent 2.6 million with him. I've spent 5.6 million, bought and sold. So I'm good there. The only thing holding me back from mechanic is the level. That's how you level up the traders. Each time you level up a trader, you get access to more and more gear. Once you get to level 42 and have done a bunch of the quests and everything, you get all the traders maxed, and basically for the rest of your wipe, you just chill and you can buy all of the gear that you want from the traders. So that is the traders and how they work. I know it can be extremely overwhelming to just cycle through all of these random miscellaneous gun parts or weapon attachments and stuff like that. Don't worry about it. Once again, just kind of like use guns that you can use. This and the weapon modification will come over time. It is overwhelming. There's a lot in this game, but you'll come to love that because of the customization that you can do. But that is kind of like a breakdown of the traders. The other economy-based interaction that you can have is with the flea market, which is down here at the bottom. And this is the player-driven economy. This is a person has an item and they want to sell it to other players. So you list it on the flea market. Now, before we dive too far into the flea market, we have to talk about a system in the game called Found in Raid. And Found in Raid is basically the game notating that an item was not just like purchased, but it was something that was found in Raid. Found in Raid is a really bad name for it because it's not that simple. Veritas made a really funny graph. Maybe I'll pop it up on screen right now. But here are some kind of like general rules of thumb. If a human being player brought it into a raid, it's not found in raid. So if you kill a player and you take their gear, even though you found that gear in raid, it's not considered found in raid because another player brought it in and they probably purchased it. Anything when you spawn into a raid that's generated by the computer servers that run that raid is going to be found in raid. So if I open and loot a duffel bag and I find a grizzly, that will be found in raid because I found it in that raid. Now, it gets a little bit confusing for things like when you die. We talked about this secure container down here. If I found this ibuprofen in raid and I was like, oh, I really like ibuprofen, so let me put it in my secure container. If I die, I get to keep the ibuprofen, but it loses its found in raid status. This was to prevent people from running in with no gear, finding the highest tier loot, and then just grenading their own feet and then listing all those things in the flea market. This system is very controversial, but it is what it is. So in order to list something on the flea market, it has to be found in raid. What we're going to talk about later when we talk about the hideout, anything you craft in your hideout, that is considered found in raid, and quest rewards are also almost always found in raid. So the long and short of it is, if you're on the flea market and you want to list something, make sure it's got that item or you can't list it. That is basically how the flea market and the player-driven economy kind of functions. It all sits on top of the found in raid system. That being said, we can go through kind of like how this works. Obviously the browse tab, this is every single thing in the entire video game. So you can kind of sort through this if you're looking for something specific. These are all the stimulants, all the injectors that we talked about. You can sort them however you want. There's really no reason to sort anything in any other way other than price, low to high. When you're trying to purchase something, a lot of people are trying to purchase it as well. So you might click click purchase, and then it say, hey, that's out of stock. You just kind of have to keep spamming it and refreshing it, or buy one that's a little bit more expensive because it's going to be a little bit less contested. Obviously, most things are just searchable. If you're looking for a grizzly, just type in grizzly, you pull it up, there you go. That's how we interact with things most of the time. When you click on this, you can open it up a little bit and you can add something to your wish list. That wish list is here. So anything that you've added to your wish list, this isn't used super often, but if there's a few things that you're looking for your hideout or something like that, and you want to keep track of those things and you don't always want to have to search them, that's what the wish list is here. So as you can see, 0 out of 2, which means I can only have 2 listings active at any given time. This can be increased. So if you see this over here in like the top right, 4.72. This is my flea market reputation, or my flea market standing. Every time you complete a sale, which means I put something up and somebody buys it, that rep goes up depending on how much rubles you've basically put through the economy. So if I sell a bunch of things for a very little amount of money, I will be gaining rep, but it'll be gaining pretty slowly. If I find something super rare and I sell it on the flea market for 10 million rubles, that is going to go up pretty dramatically. The higher this reputation is, you start hitting thresholds where you can list more things on the flea market. The wiki has that broken down. I don't remember exactly where everyone is, but you can get to the point where you can have 3 offers, 4 offers, 5 offers. It goes all the way up, but that's only like crazy people get that high. So that is going to be how you increase the amount of offers that you have. And then if we look at something like the grizzly is kind of a good example. And then we click on this cogwheel here. These are the filters for the flea market. So if you're looking for a specific currency, if you're looking for a price range, a certain amount, like a amount of, if I want to buy 10 of something and I want to buy all 10 from one person, the condition is kind of pretty cool as well, because I can look for, there's very few instances where you're going to want to do this, but if I want to look for 0 to 50% grizzlies, just to show what this means, now this is going to only show me grizzlies that are from 0 to 50% full. You wouldn't normally want to do that. And the way I have my filter set up, I'm always looking for things that are 90 to 100%, because this also applies to things like armors or guns. And we'll talk about the durability of that stuff later. Removing barter items means it's not going to show you if there's like a barter where it's trading item for items. Lots of the traders have barters where if you want something, you can trade an actual item for that. You can remove that. You can look for offers that are only from players, because the traders will have their offers here as well. Showing functional item. Functional means that it's a usable item. So you can sell guns that like are missing parts, that gun wouldn't be functional. So this is basically how it's normally set, pretty standard. But what you can do is change any of these, change the condition, change the traders, and then just click remember selected filter and okay. And then that's how all of your filters are going to be. So I've got, there needs to be at least one. The condition needs to be at least 90%. I want to exclude barter offers, and it has to be an operational thing only. And then that's how it filters everything all the time for my flea market. Now, if we are, let's pretend to put something up. If we were going to list this morphine, morphines are going for around 17,000 rubles. When you list something, this is the screen that you get. I've selected the morphine. I can list it for 17,000 rubles. There is a fee associated with listing something on the flea market that I have to pay. So when I click place offer, whether somebody buys this or not, I paid the 1,300 rubles. I just eat that cost. And if this scales up. So if I tried to sell this morphine for 170,000 rubles, then the fee is 16,000. It's like, hey, you're trying to sell that for too much. If I sell it for 1.7 million rubles, the fee is pretty much 30% of that. If I tried to sell this one morphine for 17 million rubles, the fee to do that would be 36 million. This is basically a way to stop people from just trading money back and forth by taking cheap items, listing it for a lot, RMT, stuff like that. But the important thing to note here is the fee is basically determined by the price of the item when sold to a trader. So it takes that base price of how much I would sell this to therapists for, and it calculates how much it's worth, and then that fee multiplier is in there. So it's important to note, because there are situations where an item is very coveted by players, and so that demand increases the price. But what a lot of people don't know is when they list something for a ton of money, the fee to list that could be eating 90% of their profit. This happens literally every wipe with some miscellaneous item that's needed for a quest, and people are listing them for 50,000 rubles, and they're not checking the fact that it costs 40,000 rubles to list it for 50,000 rubles. So that's just something to be aware of. You can put it here. You can list it for dollars or euros. Most people just list basically everything for euros. It expires in 12 hours, meaning if nobody buys your item in 12 hours, it basically just returns it to you. It keeps the found in raid status, but it's like, hey, you lost that fee of however much it was. And if nobody purchases your item, your flea market standing goes down. Now, if you made a mistake and you listed something for way too much money, you can actually cancel a listing by going over to My Offers, clicking on it and click cancel. That will do the same thing. That will actually bring your flea market rep down. So just kind of try and sell stuff for what it's worth. I'm a fiend for just putting it. So if this was 17, I would sell it for 17 or 16.999. I always want mine to be at the top because I want it to sell quickly. I just like churning and burning things through the flea market. But you know, you do you. Some people like to sell things for higher before they go to bed and let it sell overnight. Now, last thing to show when we're talking about the flea market is how to navigate the flea market from your stash. If I right click on an item, if I click filter by item, it takes me to the flea market and it shows me all of the grizzlies, anything I want. Voodoos, boom, here are all the voodoo scopes. Splint, here are all the splints. Now, this is really, really helpful if you're trying to replace something. Like if this grizzly was almost done, I could just boom, buy another one. If you're searching for something, if you found something in your stash and you want to see how much it goes for, I found this morphine, it's found in raid. Can I make money off of it? I just click found in raid and I can see, okay, they're worth about 17,000 rubles. There are a few other really helpful things as well. You can click linked search, and that is going to show you anything that's like adjacent to what you're using. So for that, you might not want to do meds because you kind of know what's adjacent to that. But this suppressor, for example, if I right click and do linked search, this is going to show me everything that can attach to that suppressor. So in this case, only this compensator attaches to that suppressor. But if I found the compensator, what is this attached to? What does this work with? I do linked search, and this shows me, okay, it goes to that suppressor, but it also goes on these rifles. So linked search is basically, if this is the item, anything that goes in either direction, one step, it's going to show me. So a compensator really is a great example. By right click and clicking link search, it's going to show me the guns that compensator goes on, and it's going to show me the suppressors that can attach to that compensator. So you can like work all the way down in a lot of ways with attachments and stuff like that by clicking, okay, well, what is this suppressor attached to? Okay, I need this compensator, but what does this compensator fit on? What guns? And you really just work your way down. That linked search can be a very, very helpful tool when we were talking about the traders, all these different attachments, all these different guns, all this different stuff. Why can't I drop this ACOG scope on this M4? Well, if I click link search, then you can see, okay, it needs a mount. Then I can buy this mount. This mount goes on that M4 or any of these different adapters. And you can kind of see how you can learn a little bit of that. Now, the last helpful thing when traversing the flea market from your stash is required search. And when you click required search, that's basically, is there anything on the flea market that requires the item that I have? There aren't that many barters on the flea market, but that's basically what this is for. If I found this gunpowder and I click required search, I'm going to then have to remove my filter for the barters because this is going to inherently be a barter. And now I can see that mechanic does have an offering for an ammo case that requires 2 of these green gunpowders and 2 thermites. And from here, if I wanted to, I could right click filter by item, how much the thermites cost. Boom, there's 70K. I can purchase them from here. But that's just nice to know, more for like random barter items like this. Is there anything that requires the item that I have? Yep, there's a few barters here for the blue gunpowder. But those 3 things are really the bread and butter of navigating the flea market because it's literally every item in the game. Filter by item, linked search, and required search. These are going to help you navigate the flea market much, much quicker. All right, so that is the traders, the flea market, and all of the economy of the game. We can back to the menu and click on the last thing that we see here on the menu, and that is the hideout. The hideout is basically like your base. This is a money sink. This is a way to craft a bunch of items. There's a lot of gameplay loops in here that are really, really cool, but this is like an offline thing. This is not rateable by other players. When you start your game, your hideout is basically just like a broken, crumbled mess. And each of these little nodes that you see basically just require you to upgrade them from level 1 all the way up. And this changes a lot visually as well. This is also where the stash gets upgraded. You can increase the size of your stash depending on the version of the game that you have. If you have Edge of Darkness, you're already at max. This is where you do that as well. And this offers a lot of different functionality. Upgrading any particular thing will take a mixture of items, maybe trader levels, and potentially cash as well, hundreds of thousands of rubles or dollars or whatever. Something I've been looking at upgrading is the air filtering unit. It's 25,000 USD, which I don't have, a few items, and I need a skier level 3. From here, you can right click, filter by item. Once again, I can see that I need to buy a few of these and turn them in. You don't need found and raid items to upgrade any of your modules. There are a lot of modules that do a lot of things. We won't go through all of them because as you're upgrading them, all you have to do is click on them and kind of see what they do. Some of them are pretty much exclusively passive. Nothing happens at rest space, but it gives you a few little buffs. Some of them are very active. The workbench is a place where you can craft a bunch of ammos, which is really important. You can craft quest items. You can craft items that you need for barters, all sorts of stuff. You can craft grenades, and all the stuff that you craft here, like we talked about earlier, is found in raid. So I can craft some ammos and then sell them on the flea market. I can craft some guns and then sell those on the flea market if I want to, or I can buy things off the flea market to use in crafts. So a lot of things can happen here. These modules can affect how fast you level some of your soft skills. They can affect how quickly your scav cooldown is. It can affect how much XP you get from your quests, how much money you get from quests. A lot of stuff is affected here. It is all run off of fuel from your generator. You can purchase these 2 different types of fuel cans, or you can find them in raid, and then you put them in here. As your generator levels up, you can put more fuel cans in. It will show you how much fuel you have left. You can turn the power of your hideout off, but any of your crafts now are slowed down dramatically. If something would take 3 hours to craft, it might take 40 hours to craft now with the power off. So that's kind of what you want to do. Also, the buffs to your character, I believe, kind of go away too when your power's off. So while you're playing in general, you want the power on. That requires fuel, and that is a money sink. And upgrading all of these modules is a money sink, but it's that constant back and forth of, do I want the buffs to my character? Do I want the extra thing? Do I want to be able to, craft these things? Or do I want to save the money on fuel? There's a few other things you can do. The gym is a place where you can literally work out. It's a mini game that increases your soft skills. And one of the most important things for new players, as you level up the shooting range, this is a great way to actually mess with the guns in Escape from Tarkov and practice your aim. And all sorts of kind of stuff. You can see how the guns function and practice them. When you're in your shooting range, you do not consume any ammo. You will go through your mags like normal, but you won't actually consume any ammo. As soon as you back out, all your ammo is back and full. And then there are also passive money you can make. The last thing to note here is you can make a lot of passive money by crafting things and then selling them. There's a literal Bitcoin farm where you install graphics cards that you found in raid and you mine Bitcoin. Bitcoin sells for a lot in Escape from Tarkov, so you can make money passively there. And then the scav case is basically like gambling, where you pay scavs to just go find you random loot, and you can pay in various amounts. The more you pay, the rarer items you can get, but you might get scammed and they might not bring you anything. But yeah, that's the hideout. It's kind of complicated, but it really does basically teach you as you go, because it doesn't just give you everything. You kind of have to upgrade this so you can upgrade that, and you can read about everything, what it's going to do for you, what it costs to get to the next level. So it's a money sink, but also a way to craft some passive income, a way to buff your skills and stuff like that. And that is the hideout. All right, so now let's start talking about things that you would need to get ready for an actual raid. The first thing, and this is something that you've probably heard about quite a bit when thinking about Escape from Tarkov, and that is modifying guns. Like we said, when we were talking about the traders, there are literally just hundreds and thousands of attachments that can go on all sorts of different guns, and it can get very complicated. Don't worry about it too much. Most of the early game guns you run, you just buy them, you run them, you maybe put a red dot on them or something like that. But there are a few quick tools that help you navigate the system really, really well. So if I click on something like this suppressor, this will give you all of the information you need to know about it, like the recoil reduction of it, how much ergonomics, that kind of stuff. But the compatible with available is really nice. This basically, if I hover over it, this means I don't have anything in my stash that this can immediately attach to. Now, something like an optic will attach to basically every gun because optics are simple. You can just plop them on any gun. But as you can see with this ACOG, like we talked about earlier when we did the linked search, the ACOG doesn't have a mount. It doesn't go directly on a gun. You need a mount to mount this ACOG to a gun. So with the compatible with, I can see it kind of gives you that like, oh, I might need something. Then I click link search, then I see the mount. But if you find an attachment, you can hover over it, go with the compatible with, and it's going to show you what guns that thing can directly attach to. So that's a great kind of like cheat code for figuring this stuff out. Things can get very, very complicated, but go over to the compatible with and it'll show you, what you have available in your stash that this can attach to. Now, next, we can right click on any gun in your stash and click modding. Now, this is very important. Modding is going to only show you things that you have in your stash. So if I wanted to swap out the pistol grip, this isn't every single pistol grip that's in the game. This is only showing the pistol grips that I have in my stash. So the modding screen is also a really nice screen to basically, if you have a bunch of parts and you're not sure if they work on each other or you want to build a gun from them, you don't have to drag them all around. You can right click, go to the modding screen, and then start seeing, if I click on the scope, I have a few other Voodoo scopes, but I also have this Schmidt & Better one. Do I have any other suppressors that work or compensators? No, I don't. Do I have any other flashlights that work? I actually don't. This will show you any other foregrips that work. So the modding screen is nice because you know that if there's anything in the modding screen, that is stuff that you have in your stash and you can build your guns from there. I will say though, it is important to know that you need to actually have room in your stash. So if you remove a pistol grip, this gun turns red because it's not a functional item, but it saves me space, right? So that takes up a lot less space than that. If for any reason you have a gun in your stash like this, and I want to attach this pistol grip, it's going to say, hey, there's not enough room, you have to move it. That same thing happens from the modding screen. If I say, oh, I want to add this pistol grip, it's not going to let me because there's not enough room. So just make sure when you're in that modding screen and you're trying to build a gun, that the gun actually has room in your stash. And then if we go back and right click on this gun again and click edit preset, this looks very similar to the modding screen, but this is going to be everything in the video game. This is every single pistol grip that fits on here. This is every single buttstock. This is every rail. This is every barrel. This is every optic. And the reason that this is important is because this is nice for building out guns that you want to use with other items. Now, if I built this gun with this, if I swapped this over to that and just made a few adjustments here with items that I don't have, you can then click assemble and it's going to say, hey, well, you don't have all of these parts. Do you want to buy them? I can be like, sure, I do. Then it takes you to something that looks a lot like the flea market, but it's going to prioritize traders first. It's going to, so that you can avoid spending too much money, it's going to say what you can buy from the trader. So this is telling me, hey, I can buy this and this, but no trader is selling this scope that you wanted. It's not available. So I can purchase these if I want. I can remove the filter that this is only showing me stuff from the traders. And then I can see, okay, somebody is listing this on the flea market for 104,000 rubles. I can decide if I want to buy that. I can click purchase all if I want. Removing that owner type traders filter also changes the price of these things because sometimes people list these things for less than the traders offer them for. If the flea market listing for this was higher, then it would still be the trader here, but I can get all these things for cheaper from the traders, obviously except for the suppressor, which is very expensive. And then if I purchase these, I would just hit escape, go back to this, click assemble again, and it would assemble it because I had purchased all the parts. If you want to save this preset for future use, you can just click save, and then I can click M700 friggin' swag build. I don't know. Then I could save that. And then at any time down here in the presets, I click presets. I can search M700. My M700 swag build will pull up. I can open it and then I'll select which gun I want to build this preset off of. I have a few M700s in my stash. Select and then buy again, and the whole process goes through again. So that is the edit preset. This is really a fun screen to just noodle around on and actually see what types of things you can put on your guns. Something like an M4, things get really insane where it's an incredibly moddable gun. You can do different barrel lengths, foregrounds, suppressors, pistol grips, magazines, gas blocks. It's obviously very, very complicated and it can be very intimidating, but the edit preset screen is a great place to basically just noodle around and start to get a better understanding of it, because it basically shows you everything that the game has to offer. To circle back though, when in doubt, if you have an item, right click, linked search. I have this compensator. Linked search is going to show me what this compensator can attach to. It can attach to these other compensators, or it can attach to these guns. That's kind of the best way to slowly start to figure out the weapon modification system. Now, while we're talking about guns, let me click on this M700 and we should go through what we've got right here. So this is going to show you a few different things. It's going to show you, accuracy, ergonomics, recoil, sighting range, all that sorts of stuff. Mostly what people are looking at here is the ergonomics, which is going to determine how fast you can shoulder the gun, how fast you can ADS it, and kind of how long you can ADS it. The weight of the gun, which is up here, also determines that as well. And the recoil. The muzzle velocity, the accuracy, the sighting range, those things aren't really looked at. Recoil and ergo are the two big things, and it's going to show you those things here. It's also going to show you, when you double click on a gun, every single attachment on it. And so if you're in a raid and you double click on someone's gun, and you can just start taking attachments off if you don't want to take the whole thing, that's going to be here. It's also going to show you the caliber, the ammunition in this game, which we're going to get to in a second. There's lots of it, but this is going to show you what it shoots. It's going to show you if it's single fire, burst fire, or full auto, what the fire rate is, all that kind of stuff. Also, as you can see here, it's going to show you the durability of the gun. This is super important because your guns in Tarkov can malfunction. A gun that is 100% durability will not malfunction. When it gets to about 95% durability, that is when a chance to malfunction happens. Any gun can overheat, which if it has a suppressor, you're really only worried about full auto guns when you're talking about overheating. The suppressor or the barrel will start to glow. Any gun at any durability can overheat if you're just throwing rounds through it super quickly, but it won't properly malfunction unless it's under about 95 durability. It's not a guarantee that it will. I've had guns at 70 durability that have never jammed. I've had guns jam at exactly 95 durability. It's super RNG, but it's important to know that semi-auto guns like DMRs or snipers don't jam very often because you're just not putting as many rounds through them. So that's why I'm not too worried about this on this M700. But when you double click on a gun, it's going to give you a lot of this information. Obviously, recoil, you want as low as possible. Ergo, you want as high as possible, and check the durability of the gun. All right, now let's take some time and talk about armor. Body armor and Escape from Tarkov is something that is very important because it can drastically increase your survivability, but it is also very complicated. Once again, I'm not going to give you everything you need to know about this. There are literal multi-thousand word essays on ballistics and how it interacts with armor in this game. I'm going to try and give you the not super complicated version of it. Every armor has an armor class. When you click on an armor and you go over armor class here, it's going to show you the different classes of armor. Now, the way Escape from Tarkov works is there are hard plates and soft armor in most armors, and those armors can be different durability. Lower durability is worse, higher durability is better. It goes from 1 to 6. Class 6 is the best armor in the game. Class 1 is offering very little protection for you. I actually don't even know if it goes on a class 1. Class 2, it might be as low as it goes. But we can take this Thor body armor and we can see these plates are class 4 plates, and the soft armor that's underneath is class 3 soft armor. So, and then in addition, it also shows you the different coverage points here. So you can see that the right side, the left side soft armor, and then back and front, this is all what's class 3. And then these hard plates here are just front and back. Now, there are slots here for me to slot in. I don't know if these will work. It will. Okay, I have these random plates sitting right here. These are class 6 side plates that I just found when I was raiding around, and I can slot these in here. So the hard plates are removable, which means you can replace them even in raid. If you find somebody's armor, you can open it up. You can take their plates out if your plates are damaged, and you can put them in your armor. But these grayed out things are the soft armor that's underneath. So a lot of armors now have basically 2 different sets of armors. Some are only soft armor that don't have any removable plates. And some are only the plates armor that don't have any soft armor. Most of them are both, however. When you get shot in the body armor, basically what the game is going to do is say, what is the penetration value and the damage of the round that shot you? And what is the armor class and the durability of the armor you're wearing? And determine, did that round penetrate your armor? If it did not penetrate the armor, it just does damage to the armor, reducing the effective durability and its effectiveness. If it does penetrate, then it basically re-rolls those calculations on your soft armor, because when an armor penetrates, it loses some of its energy, it loses some of that damage potential when it penetrates an armor. So then it says, so if I got shot in the chest, it's going to say, can it pen this front plate? Yes. Okay, well now can it pen this soft plate? If yes, then it's going to hit you and it's going to do a bunch of damage to you. If your plates stop it, you will not take any damage. In some cases, you can take a tiny little bit of blunt damage, which is just like a few HP taken off from getting shot, but the armor plate saved it. So that's kind of how the calculations roll. It'll make more sense when we talk about the ammo. Now, the armors only cover what they physically cover, what you can see. So if I got shot in the side here, my armor's not going to save me. It's just covering this part of my side and my front and my back. You can get shot in the neck, I can get shot in the shoulder, and it's not covering those things. That's where you can see some of these huge armors come into play that have shoulder protection, that have groin protection, that have side protection. These are much heavier, and the plates cost a lot more money, but these are class 5 plates with class 3 soft armor underneath it. You can go, this is a great example as well, the Slick. This offers very, very little protection. It's a class 6 plate in the front and the back. It's the best armor that you can get in the front and the back, but it offers absolutely no side protection and very little protection. So actually, if I take this and put it on my character, you'll actually be able to see how little it's actually protecting me. So I can get shot kind of in the shoulder here, I can get shot in the neck, I can get shot in the stomach, I can get shot in the sides, and all of that, those shots are going to act like I have absolutely no armor at all. If I get shot directly in the front or directly in the back, I've got some of the best armor in the game. I have class 6 plates. So that's kind of like a TLDR of how armor works. There's all sorts of complicated features in it. Some people like Gigabeef and Airwing Marine have really, really good videos on what the plates are made of, how destructible they are, how well they repair. It can get pretty in the weeds, but suffice it to say, there are different classes of armor and a bunch of different plates in each armor class. So anytime you find a plate or find an armor, open it up, see what the plates are, see what the soft armor is, and kind of determine if you think that's a good or bad armor. You can, once again, swap out these plates. I could take those class 6 plates and put them in this armor if I wanted to. So it's not as easy as it used to be to just see an armor, oh, a Thor armor is good or a Thor armor is bad. You're most of the time going to want to open it up, especially if it's off a player, and see if maybe they put in better or worse plates, and make that determination. When a plate gets shot, it gets damaged. The more it gets damaged, the less effective it is. You can repair those plates or buy new ones if you want to, and basically repair your armor up. The more you repair an armor, the more you repair a plate, it is going to become less effective. So I can repair this Thor armor. You can see it's a total of 193 out of 209. It took a little bit of damage. You can repair with armor repair kits, or you can pay actual rubles through different traders. Mechanic costs the most money to repair, but he repairs the most effective. Proper costs the least amount of money, but he doesn't repair very well. Armor repair kits are good. So if I say though, every time I repair, you can see now this is out a total of 204. It used to be the max was 209. Now it's 204, meaning the more you repair something, the less effective that it is. And that's kind of just what you want to keep in mind. Most of the time you're going to die before you get to that point and lose the armor, before you get to the point where you're like, is this even effective anymore? But it's just important to know that the more you repair something, the less effective it's going to be. All of this also applies to helmets. Helmets are also kind of broken up into a few different areas. Once again, it's the same thing here. You can hover over this and see the class of armor. It's class 4, and you can see what it covers, the armor areas. This helmet covers the top of my head, the nape, which is the back of my head, and my ears. Some helmets won't cover your ears, meaning that you can get shot in the ear and it's going to completely bypass the helmet. And some cover ears. Some helmets have face shields. Those face shields mean that you can't wear headphones. There's a lot of give and take. Once again, all of it similarly applies. There aren't plates in helmets, but it's the same thing. Just open it up, see what armor class it is. That's going to tell you how effective of a helmet it is, and see what it covers, because having something that covers your ears or having a face mask to cover your face can be pretty nice, but it's all a trade-off. You know, something that covers your ears is going to be more expensive. A face cover is going to be more expensive, but that's going to show you, what it does. The only thing that's different about armors, and they don't show it here anymore, which I find interesting, is that helmets also have a ricochet chance, meaning that some random percentage of the time with helmets, no matter what ammo is being shot at you, you have a chance to just ricochet it. I don't know if it's depending on the angle, but like it could be the best ammo in the game and you could have a terrible helmet, but there's some chance that it's just going to ricochet. When that happens, oftentimes maybe 1 point of damage is done to the helmet. That's kind of how you can tell, and you're saved. Your bell's rung a little bit, but you're saved. If you get shot in the helmet and the armor actually tanks the round, a lot of times it will take a lot more durability off of your helmet. Now, the last thing to say with the armors and the helmets, it's something that they share, is when you double click on something, the armors in this game do affect how you move your character around. So it actually affects my movement speed and how quickly I can turn. Small armors like this, it's not very noticeable. Huge armors like this, a literal almost 10% reduction in how quickly you can turn around. And that stacks also with helmets. So if I was wearing a really big armor and a really big helmet, the turn speed, you can see this actually really does. So if you have a bunch of stuff on you, if you have some really chunky armor and you're like, why does my sense feel weird? The game is actually messing with your sensitivity by reducing your movement speed and your turn speed. So that is something to know as well. And that is kind of like a quicker TLDR of how armor works. Once again, if you have further questions, you can go to the wiki, but that's kind of the basics of what you need to know. Now, as a super quick last tip before we move on from guns and from armor, there are weapon repair kits and armor repair kits in the game. If you find these, it basically means you can repair your armors and repair your weapons without spending money on the traders to do so. And often these will also give you the best return on that repair. It's going to repair better than the traders will. You can find these. You can also buy them on the flea market. The other important thing to note is that only when you repair through these things, it corresponds to the soft skills, light vest, heavy vest, or weapon maintenance. So repairing a gun with a weapon repair kit increases weapon maintenance. Repairing heavy or light armor with an armor repair kit increases these soft skills. When these soft skills get to level 10, you have to get them to level 10, then you get the opportunity to it's called enhancing a gun or an armor, which basically, I like to joke that it's like an enchantment table, rolls extra additional stats on the armor. So you can enhance an armor to get like plus 15% extra damage absorption, or you can enhance a gun to have lower recoil. That's not something you're going to run into super quickly, but it's just something worth noting when we're talking about weapons and armor. Now, the other thing we have to talk about in this game is the ammo. We're talking about armor and how it functions. Well, the other half of that conversation is ammo. The better the ammo, the higher chance it's going to penetrate the armor. Once again, as you can just see by me opening these ammo cases, there are a ton of different ammunitions in the game. And unfortunately, while double clicking on them does give you some helpful information, the most important information is actually hidden from the player. We'll get to that in a second. So you double click on any ammo and it's going to give you a bunch of information. Most of it is kind of irrelevant. If you're trying to figure out what gun it goes to, it will tell you the caliber, which is nice. This goes to 5.45 guns. If there's any sort of modifiers like on accuracy or recoil, how fast it's going to make your gun's durability go down. Once again, these are largely all irrelevant things, but it will tell you how fast it is and what the caliber is. The important thing here is that what the game doesn't tell you is the penetration and damage value of those ammos. So what we can do is pull up a few external tools here. I hate that they're external. I wish the game just gave you this information. This is kind of where Tarkov gets a little spreadsheet simulatory, but this is really important to know. So like we said, all of those ammos have some really important stats that the game doesn't tell you. You can use the Escape from Tarkov wiki or this website, eft-ammo.com. But let's look at something like 5.45, which is the caliber we were just looking at. So this is all of the ammo that you can get for a 5.45 gun, which is like an AK. There are a lot of different rounds. This is going to show you the penetration and the damage. Now, this is kind of linked to the armor conversation that we were having. A rough rule of thumb, this is not a like hard set rule, but a rough rule of thumb, we were talking about the armor plates and the classification of them. A class 4 armor plate. A round with about 40 pen will pretty reliably go through a class 4 armor. A round with about 50 pen will reliably go through class 5 armor. Not always, but that's the threshold that you can kind of go towards. So if you have class 4 plates and you have T ammo, which has 20 penetration, It's not very effective against class 4 armor or class 5, and it's really not very effective against class 3 armor either. That's kind of that breakdown there. Now, the other big half of this is damage. If you penetrate an armor, well then how much damage are you going to do? The pen has nothing to do with that. That's where the damage number comes in. A round can have, this is a great example, really high pen to a Golnik. This round, there's basically no armor in the game. It's going to reliably go through every single armor in the game. However, when it does so, it's going to do relatively a very small amount of damage. And like we said, once a round penetrates an armor, it loses some of this damage. So if I did shoot someone in the chest with this, I might only do 34 damage or 35 damage. So that's kind of the balancing act that you have to go through here. There are a few other statistics here, like a round can actually reduce the recoil of a gun. Fragmentation is like when a round does basically a critical hit and does bonus damage. Don't worry about too much of that, especially if you're a new player. The pen and the damage are the big things to learn at first, and you do kind of have to use some sort of external tool for that. But that is really important because when we look at all of these different ammos, you kind of want to have an understanding of how that ammo stacks up, because you want to have a decent understanding of what the time to kill is going to look like. If all you have access to is really bad ammo, that's okay. You can, aim for the face, aim for the legs, aim for those unarmored spots. We were talking about most armors don't cover everything, but you need to have that understanding and expectation that, if you are going up against somebody that's really heavily armored, it's going to take a lot of shots to bring them down. The good thing is that for how complex this system is and for how many ammos there are in the game, I don't think there's a single ammo in the game that won't one-tap an enemy to the face. Like we said earlier, the health hitbox is only 35. Most helmets don't cover the face, and so you can drop almost anybody with one single well-placed round. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. That doesn't mean that, going up against a Giga Chad is going to be easy. But when in doubt, aim for the face. Also, it follows a pretty intuitive curve where smaller calibers like 9mm are going to be relatively lower pen and lower damage than if you put something out of a sniper rifle. Even bad rounds in this M700 are going to be relatively decently high damage and high pen. So it's pretty intuitive like that. But once again, it's just something that you pick up a few rounds and then you hop over to the wiki and you kind of see what they look like. And what you'll end up doing is just starting to understand the maybe 2 or 3 best or 2 or 3 mid-tier rounds for the calibers that you like to run. And then you'll start just folding in some of that extra knowledge over time as well. Also, the availability of these ammos. So once again, it's going to be pretty intuitive. As you level up the traders, you get access to better and better ammos. This is the best round in the game for 9x21. You have to get to level 4 proper to get there. Some of the absolute best ammos in the game aren't even purchasable on the flea market or on the traders, and you have to find them in raid or find them off bosses or craft them or something like that. So that's another thing that helps you if you're a newer player. Once you start to understand what those good ammos are, you might be able to find some of the best ammo in the game in your raids, load a few of them into your gun, and then bam, you can be super competitive even against some of the best armors in the game. Now, there's a few final quick things we need to talk about in the stash here before we hop into a raid. And first and foremost, that is how your equipment is going to be set up here. Obviously, you can, load up your character with whatever you want, your backpack, whatever guns, armor, and stuff like that. A good tip here is that if you click above headwear, this is going to show me all of the helmets I have in my stash. If I click earpiece or face cover, that's super nice for if you find something or if you have it buried in a case, you had an armor somewhere, this is going to show you everything that you have available. That's nice. When you're setting up your kit to run, it's important to know that, for example, when you're reloading your gun, it's going to reload from left to right on your magazines, and it's also going to reload to the most full magazine first. So, for instance, I like running 2 different types of ammos. This is a better ammo than this, but I don't have as many rounds in this. So what I'll do is I'll stack the good ammo in the mag in my gun, and I have good ammo in this mag as well, and then the less good ammo in these 2. If I had this ammo over here, if I'm in a raid and I click reload, it is going to pull this magazine first. Understanding that almost everything, it's going to pull left to right. if you get into a situation where all of your mags are kind of a little bit empty, when you just click R to reload, it's going to reload to the most full magazine you have, no matter where it is. Additionally, you need to make sure that you're bringing in extra ammo into your raids. So I've got 4 30-round mags here in these SMGs. If I shoot all of these rounds, that's it. I have no more ammo for the raid, especially if I don't have this M700 on me. So I am bringing in an additional 100 rounds because as I shoot this, I'm going to need to, in raid, go in and drag this armor up and actually manually load the ammo in my raids. Also, for something to be usable, it has to be in your tactical rig or in your pockets. So for example, if I have this grenade in my backpack and I'm in a raid and I press G to throw a grenade, it will not throw it. It needs to be up here in my pocket or in my tactical rig to use. Same thing with your heals. If I have them in my backpack, I will not be able to use them. Speaking of heals, you need to manually select where you want your heal to go, what key you want it to be. So I personally like my heal on 4, my painkiller on 5, and my hemostat on 6. And you assign that by literally just hovering over it and then pressing the 4 key. Or you can alternatively drag it down here kind of to the bottom and that will manually set it as well. You cannot assign a heal if it's in your backpack. And if I take my rig off for any reason, like to swap over to somebody else's rig and then put it on, you can see that it basically removed that bind. So if you take your rig off, swap it out, boom, and then you get into a fight and you try and heal, it's not going to be bound. You have to make sure you're rebinding your meds and that your grenades are in the right spot. If your rig is full of stuff, if you're looting and it's full of stuff and meds, and I try to reload here, what's going to happen is it's going to kick this mag and drop it on the floor. Like actually in the raid, instead of placing that magazine into my rig and taking a new one, it's going to drop it on the floor. So I have often got myself into a situation where I'm like, where are all my mags? And it's because I just kept looting and kept reloading and dropping them on the floor. So you want to make sure that your rig or your pockets or whatever you're using has enough space. Some magazines are small. For instance, the 20-round magazines of this gun are only 1 cell. So if I had a few of these, I can reload these to the single cell ones. Some magazines like drum mags for big guns actually can kind of take up 2x2, or some 45 rounder or 100 rounders are 1x3. So it's all this balancing act of what gear do you have? Can your magazines and everything fit into your rig? Can your heals fit into your rig? If you wanted to bring a grizzly, but it didn't fit in there, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good in your backpack. Can it fit? And is there enough room to reload? Those are all kind of important little things to understand, making sure you're bringing your ammo and making sure you understand how your gear works. Also, really quickly, I'm going to switch the camera over here. In the bottom left-hand corner, this is your weight. This is how much you weigh. And this is actively updated every time you put on any extra loot or anything like that in your raid. When this is green, you're quote unquote underweight. You're chilling, you don't have any debuffs or anything like that. Once you get to a certain weight threshold and it turns orange like that or yellow, you are overweight. And in your raid, it will actually tell you that in the health status. It'll under head or thorax, it'll say you're overweight. Once you're overweight, you start getting some debuffs, and that increases the heavier that you get. Your stamina is going to regen slower. Once you get to certain weight levels, your stamina won't regen while you're walking. You have to remain perfectly still. You lose hydration and energy faster. And all of these things scale up the heavier that you get. You can get all the way up to red. Let me see if I can get myself super heavy here. And once you get up to the red, boom, you are now in what's called extreme overweight. And this is basically you can't move, you're super slow, you have no stamina, it doesn't regen no matter what. Now, what you can always do is kick off your backpack. If most of your weight is in like the loot that you're carrying, you can throw it on the floor. That brought me back to underweight. I can regain my stamina and then pick it back up. That's one of the ways to traverse if you're extremely overweight. But it's kind of important to know how that works. That is affected by your strength skill. If you are in the orange, you are leveling strength. If you are in the green here, you are leveling endurance. But the strength skill is what determines when you get overweight. The higher your strength skill is, the more weight you can carry without being overweight, and everything kind of shifts up. So that's how that soft skill basically interacts. The weight system is very important, and it's always going to be a balance of how heavy do you want to be. A lot of the quest items that you need, like car batteries, can be extremely heavy. But that is how that system works. And it also kind of works in tandem with like the inertia. If you're really, really heavy and you're trying to swing a corner really tight, it's really glidey and the inertia in the game is going to kind of take you pretty far. So in general, ditch your backpack when you can. There's a keybind for it. I believe it's double tap Z. Throw your backpack on the ground if you're in combat or if you're trying to get your stamina. But that is kind of like a quick TLDR of how the weight system works. Now, let's finally get ready to go into a raid. When you click Escape from Tarkov, you're presented with two options here. PMC, which is your character. That's what we've been talking about the whole time. Scav is the other one. The Scavs in Tarkov are basically the AI. When you load into a raid, there are other players, but there's also Scavs everywhere. And they have like really bad kits. They can be really aimbotty though. They're like the civilians or ex-military people who stayed in Tarkov. You know, that's what the lore is. They're the AI. You can basically inhabit one of those AI. That's what your Scav mode is. You can choose to play as a Scav. It's going to randomly give you a kit. So this is what my kit is for this Scav raid. It's a Keter, really bad armor, no helmet, very small backpack. You can pick what map you want to go to. You can queue in. This is a free kit. When you're on your Scav raid, the AI on the map are friendly to you unless you aggro them. So you can run into other people that are player Scavs or the AI, and you can run around and loot. And this is like a free way to make a ton of money. You can go in there and try and kill PMCs. You can just loot up and leave, but that is your Scav. When you die, when you use your Scav, whether you live or you die, it goes on cooldown. You can't just infinitely Scav over and over and over again. It's about a 20-minute cooldown. Like we said, things in the hideout can also make that go quicker as well. That is what the Scav raid is. I recommend you do it as often as you can as a new player, because it's just a way to learn maps, learn the extracts, you know, loot up, make a bunch of money. I've made a lot of my money running Scav raids and then just getting out with random gear and then selling it on the flea market. The other thing to know here with Scavs is there is a system in the game called Scav Karma, and that is through the trader The Fence here. There is a system in the game called Scav Karma, and that is basically your reputation with the trader Fence, who kind of like runs the Scavs. You can see mine is 3.53. Basically, the higher your karma, the more rewards you get in the form of your Scav goes even quicker. Things cost less money. Like if you want to take a car extract on your PMC or something like that, that costs less money. And also once you get all the way up to the max karma, which is 6.0, bosses in the game are friendly to you as well. So the Scav bosses won't aggro on you. So basically, there is a system in the game called Scav Karma, and that is basically a reputation that goes up and down with the trader Fence. The higher your Scav Karma, you get rewarded in a few different ways. You can Scav quicker, and there are even benefits to your PMC as well. Like taking car extracts costs less money and stuff like that. Also, when you get all the way up to the highest Scav Karma, the Scav bosses on your Scav raids won't aggro to you, which means your Scav raids go even better. When you lose Scav Karma, when you go in the negatives, Scavs will start to aggro you. The timer between your Scav raids gets increased. Things start to get more expensive. That makes sense. You gain Scav Karma by successfully exfilling from Scav raids, from killing PMCs that have killed Scavs on your Scav raids, and there's a few ways you can increase it as your PMC as well by taking the vehicle extracts on each map that are run by the Scavs. That is the most efficient way to level that up, is actually by playing your PMC. You lose Scav Karma by killing other Scavs when you're on your Scav raid. When you're on your PMC, all Scavs are fair game because they're all AI. When you're on your Scav raid, if you kill other player Scavs or other AI Scavs, you will lose that karma. It does get a little weird and a little complicated because other player Scavs might not care about their karma and they might start aggressing at you and shooting you. In general, if somebody shot at you, you can shoot back at them and you don't have to worry about it. It gets a little weird if they shot at you but missed and then you shoot back at them and you hit them, then you're the one that loses karma. Normally what I do is just, since it's a Scav raid anyway, I just don't want to kill anything and I'll just accept death. If I'm going to kill anything on my Scav raid, it's my PMC. But Scav raids, once again, highly recommend that you use them because it's free. It's a free kit. It's a free way to get some money. It's a great way to learn the maps. Use your Scav kits. Now, if you want to take your main PMC on a raid, you click that, you click next, and then it shows you the maps. You're going to ultimately need to go to all of these to do quests. Customs and woods are ones you go to a lot as a newer player and kind of are generally maps that people recommend for new players. Ground Zero is the brand new map that's only available for people under level 15. So now that the wipe is a few weeks old, this is actually a pretty decent place to go when you're a brand new player, because you're not going to be running into people that are level 30, 40, 50, 60. It's only people that are level 15 or below. And this is where a lot of the initial tasks are as well. But you pick your map and then you pick your time. There are 2 times that basically are always rolling and they're 12 hours apart, which means there's normally a day raid and a night raid for each map. Sometimes there's like a dawn and a dusk and there's no good night raids, but if you want to run NVGs a lot or something like that, you can click night raids. They're generally less populated with super aggressive people. Everyone's just trying to quest. So some people prefer night raids for questing. Obviously much harder to see, but you know, it's a vibe if you like to do it. So you click your time, then you click next. This is where if you wanted to, you could do offline. This is the other tool I absolutely recommend new players do. You don't want this to be a crutch. You do need to get in there and feel the pain of Escape from Tarkov. However, when you're brand new to the game and you're trying to learn the maps and you genuinely just don't even know where the extract is, practice mode is great. Practice mode is basically an offline raid where it's just going to load you in, no other players. You can click on game settings here and you can even determine if you want AI. So if you don't want any AI, you can just click none. So it's literally just going to be you on whatever map you selected. You can run around, you can learn the loot locations, you can learn the landmarks, you can learn how to traverse, you can learn the extracts, you can learn the spawn points. Then if you want to, you can add in the AI. As an online means it's going to be the same amount. You can click maybe a little bit less. You want an absolute horde of them. You want them easy. You want them, you know, impossible. You want them random. These are all settings that you can change, that you can kind of curate your experience in offline. Once again, do not let this be a crutch. You really need to just die and lose your loot. That's part of Escape from Tarkov. But for new players, when you're trying to learn the maps, this is incredibly valuable. If you don't want to do that, you just click next. And then this is the insurance screen. How insurance works is if you insure an item. So to insure this helmet, it costs 1,900 rubles. If I die in this raid and nobody takes that item when the raid ends, I will eventually get that item back. So once again, if I die and the person that kills me loots my body, takes that helmet and extracts with it, I'm not going to get it back. I lost the money that I spent on insurance. If I die and a player scav comes and takes that loot and they extract with it, I'm not going to get it back. It's only if I die, maybe I died to like something crazy like a landmine and nobody knew. Maybe I died to an AI and they're not going to come loot me because they're not actual players. Or maybe I died to a player, but then that player also died. If I die and my loot is still on the ground in that raid, when that raid ends, then I'm going to get that loot back in roughly like 18 to 24 hours real time. You can insure with therapists. It costs more money, but you get your gear back a little bit quicker. The other super important thing to know with insurance is insurance expires. You basically get a message from Prapor in your messenger here in the bottom right corner saying like, hey, here's your loot. If you don't log in to Tarkov and accept that loot, he basically is like, screw you, man, and it expires. So you can't leave that gear in your insurance returns forever. That's the other benefit of insuring with therapists. It costs more money, but she'll keep the gear for longer. I would say insurance is generally worth it. I can insure this entire kit for 100,000 rubles. I know that sounds like a lot, but this is a very expensive kit. The scope on this gun by itself costs 120,000 rubles from the flea market. So if I insure this kit and I get this armor back and part of this gun, but maybe they took the good attachments on it, this armor and, you know, just the suppressor on this gun is worth more than 100,000 rubles. If I get a lot of it back, then I'm way in the green. If I get none of it back, I'm out to 100,000 rubles. For most, especially low tier kits, if you're brand new to the game, people aren't going to be picking up what you have, most likely, and it's going to be much, much cheaper to insure lower tier items. In general, it's worth it. A lot of times what you can do if you're playing with a buddy, and that buddy dies and their gear is insured, take all their gear off their body and just throw it in a bush. They're going to get it back in insurance and you don't have to lug it around, and vice versa. If you're playing with friends, insurance can be a huge way to save money long term because you're always just helping each other out. Kind of, we call it insurance fraud. But you pick, do you want to insure? Yes or no? Then you click next, and then you can click create a group and you can hop in with your friends if you want to create a group. or you just go right into a raid. Okay, so I loaded into an offline raid just to show you a few quick things about like the movement in the game, but this is it. We're in the home stretch. This is basically the end of the video here. So I recorded this during the Christmas event, so it's snowing. It's probably not going to be snowing for very much longer. There are a few important things to know. When you hop into a raid, if you double tap the O key, it's going to show you how much time is left in this raid, meaning and 39 minutes and 12 seconds, if I am not out of this raid, the raid ends. If I haven't extracted, I lose all my gear. I go what's called missing in action, and I lose everything. So this raid is going to last 39 more minutes, and that's how much time I have to get out. Double tapping O also shows me what extracts I have. Once again, this is where using maps like Map Genie or running offline raids can really help. It's going to show you which ones. Anything with a question mark means that that extract is not a guaranteed extract. So the dorms V exit here is a car extract, and it's not always here. If it is here, I can pay it to extract. The old gas station, there's green smoke there sometimes. If there's green smoke, that means I can extract there. If there's not green smoke, that means I can't. The other two that you see, ZB1011 and ZB013, those are always active, and I can always extract there no matter what. Anything that you see without any sort of question marks or anything are extracts that are just always open. So that ZB13, I can just go there. I don't have to worry about it. That extract is always going to be open to me, and all I have to do is basically walk up into it, and you're going to see an extract timer of about 8 seconds countdown, and then you extract and you get to keep all your glorious loot. If I were to run to that extraction right now, just run all the way across the map to that extraction and extract, I would get what's called a run through, and you can actually see that here. I have 2 run throughs this wipe. That's basically the game saying, hey, you didn't engage with the raid enough. We're not going to give you a survive, but we are going to let you keep the loot. But here's the thing. If I go and loot something out of this crate, like we talked about earlier, that thing I looted is going to be found in raid. If I get a run through, I get to keep that item, but it loses its found in raid status. This is normally not an issue, but if you do find yourself spawning in, you find a quest item that you need, and you immediately run to the extract, you might get a run through. The raid, you have to be in the raid for 7 minutes, or get a total of, I think it's 400 XP now from shooting things, looting, in order to get what's called a survive, where you get to keep everything and it's found in raid. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Just try not to beeline it to the extract and get out immediately. You have to kill a few scavs, or you have to be in the raid for 7 minutes. I would also definitely highly recommend you hop into an offline and take a look at the controls. There are keybinds for just about everything in this game. I'm not going to go through them all here, but it's just important to know because there's all sorts of leans. There's slow leans, quick leans, there's side steps, there's crouching. You can vault over objects now. You can manipulate your gun in all sorts of ways. You can check the magazine, check how much ammo you have, swap to different magazines, all sorts of stuff like that. There are a lot of different things that you can do, and they can all be pretty important. Things like changing the magnification of your scope when you're scoped, switching guns. Just hop in, take some time, go through the controls, and kind of figure out, you know, the few things, or watch some streams, ask some questions. How did you swap your stance from left to right? How did you change the magnification of your scope? Stuff like that. I have a few videos on some things like that. Once again, it's a little bit too in the weeds, but once again, hop into an offline. It's great to do for your first or second raid to just kind of get a feeling for the manipulation of the game and of your weapons. But that is pretty much it. At that point, it's just go around, mosey around the maps, learn the combat, hop in. I hope that this, even though it was an extremely long video, gave you a fairly decent understanding of all the mechanics in Escape from Tarkov. Thank you so much for making it all the way through this extremely long video. Once again, I really hope that this can be a resource for you to come back to if you have questions. If you have additional questions on things I didn't cover, maybe things you saw on a stream, once again, I stream Escape from Tarkov 6 days a week on Twitch and here on YouTube. Additionally, our Discord is a great place to ask questions or find people to play with. One of my personal recommendations, if you're new, is find some people to play with. That Discord link is going to be down below as well. If you like this video, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. That stuff helps me out a ton. I hope that this got you ready for your first few raids, and I hope that you have a blast playing Escape from Tarkov.